And scriptures on air.
Hello and welcome to the FS On Air podcast. I am Drunk Long Kid, and with me I have my co-host, as usual, a Mr. Darth Proteus.
Welcome, everybody. Seems we're being a little more somber today, aside from that loud intro, almost like we're doing a slam poetry session just for you.
Speaking of slam, we have a Mr. RooseLou with us.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, what's up? And we're here to talk about his new show that's premiered on FS Plus about a month and a half ago, I believe. First episode is finished, and episode 2 should be coming real soon. Anyways, yeah, we will get to that in just a moment, so just sit tight, because we just have a few things to discuss and recap, and we'll get right back to you. Why don't you take that, Drunk?
Yes, I believe I will. Alright, so how about we just talk about what's going on? First thing, Superman. Minus the actual Superman, because this is on FS, of course. But Panic in the Sky, ladies and gentlemen. The sequel that is being written by Spider, or Soider, as we like to call him, is finally coming. Yeah, but and Doctor Strange, making some very good progress, getting some very good reception. Looks like everyone says having a lot of fun with it.
Yes, I believe. I never thought I would see Noah absolutely killing it out there with the reveal that Doctor Strange is a furry in this FS project. It broke new ground.
Speaking of furries and new ground, I must bring up something. It's a little secret for all you FS pilled people out here. The FS film festival is coming up, so prepare something.
Yeah, that is coming up soon. I've actually already started planning my short. I don't know about you, Jork, or anybody else listening, but yeah, that's gonna be coming up at the should be around mid-June, and that's always a lot of fun. I know last year's was a whole bunch of fun.
Yes. I had a lot of fun, but at the same time, a lot of discrimination up there. I don't think enough people there acknowledge that I am the first person with a Raven profile picture to be in the event a second time. So I'm a little offended.
Well, I guess that is kind of important. Hopefully that can be addressed in this year's FSFF. But anyways, yeah, just be sure to start planning those, because it'll be coming real soon, and we'll probably have an episode, as usual with these kinds of big events, talk all about it when that comes out. And without further ado, let's go back to Mr. RooseLou, who has been patiently waiting to discuss his show, Fast Times in LA. So I'll ask the first question, if you don't mind. So, I know you've mentioned it before. You talked a little bit about what inspired you to make it at the Green Minis 2020, where it was announced. But if you could just maybe go over a couple things just to jog our memories, what ideas sort of came together in your mind into what we now know as Fast Times in LA?
Well, there was a lot, honestly. One of the big ones was Fargo and Hotline Miami. I was playing Hotline Miami, and I really loved the idea of it, and the fucking gameplay, of course, I loved that. And I'm a big fan of Fargo. And there was also a part of me that thought, okay, well, I have so many things I want to do, but then all of them are pretty much horror, right? All of them have that kind of tinge to it. So I thought I should expand beyond what I usually do, and try to do something that's more comedic. And I know it's Fast Times in LA is not entirely comedic, yeah, but there is a hint of dark comedy in there, and I wanted to have a little bit of crime thriller in there too.
I like those ideas. I mean, after all, horror and comedy go hand in hand. We've been seeing that for decades now.
Yeah,
so
I
like the idea of going a little, just embracing the horror roots you started with Constantine, Heaven is a Place on Earth, and going all out with that.
I didn't really think of this as horror. I thought this is a lot more just of a crime thriller overall.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess what I mean by going all out with it is essentially, well, you know what I mean, right? Like I know it's not
Yeah.
a fully a horror show, but it's
There
more
is-
like a traditional horror theme than Constantine, which was more supernatural horror.
Yeah, there are some pretty horrific moments in here for sure. Episode 4. I'm not gonna say what's in there, but episode 4 in particular, or was that 5? I don't know. But yeah, it's like I wanted to have fun with it, you know, and I like, you know, I do like having some gore in there, you know. You can't go wrong with that. So there
Yeah.
are some moments that do have some very gory, horror-ish elements that, while not overwhelming the project, they are still there.
I know what you mean, and yeah, definitely, it's definitely appropriate for the setting. I mean, heck, the first episode already probably has enough gore to rival an Invincible opening title card, so you're on the right track there.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
And I also wanted to ask for our lovely audience, you know, I mean, obviously, since since I'm one of the actors, I know some of the plans you have, but not all of them. But just where do you see it going? Just like in the long term,
So
in general, anyway.
there was a big question I was asking myself for a good while, and it's, should I continue the story? Because if we do another season, should I continue the story that we have, or should I do an anthology? Because I could keep the tone and tell a completely separate story, but still have some allusions to the original, or I could continue these characters if they survive. You know,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a question I'm still asking myself. I'm not quite sure if I want to do an anthology, or if I want to do a consistent story, or if I even want to do a season 2. Because we'll see what the reception is. We'll see where the story ends, you know, and if it's a fitting ending, or if there's more to be followed.
I definitely think either approach would work great. I mean, certainly as long as you keep the same general idea and feeling, maybe with some new ideas, anthology would work. But I like the whole world you've got set up with this show, so certainly continuing it would not be a bad idea either. But and I'm sure you've seen the mistakes of other anthology shows enough to know what not to do. Like American Horror Story has like a few standout seasons, but a lot of them are just sort of lackluster because they don't. It almost feels like they're rushing it simply because they know they have to make a new show from scratch, and they probably don't have the budget they should have to do all of that, or the proper writing teams.
My sister thinks American Horror Story is really scary, but I'm like, no, it's just kind of really bad.
It's very
I don't
tame.
know, that's my...
It's one of the shows, and I'm guilty of this too. I am definitely guilty of this, where we conflate very nasty moments with horror. You know, American Horror Story, that's one of the biggest mistakes I see, is that it's not really scary. It's just a bunch of gross things happening one after another. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I totally.
Exactly.
I understand that. I think
Now,
that it's all about the presentation.
Yeah, Constantine had that too. I'm guilty of that. That's something I'm trying to touch on. I think it can work. I mean, you've seen Hannibal. Hannibal is excellent, and it's not scary in the traditional sense, but it does make the most of its gore. Yeah, and that is the problem with anthologies. I completely agree. But one of the things I do like about anthologies is that with them, there's often a little something for everybody. If you don't like this season, maybe you'll like the next, or maybe if you don't like that one, you like the other one. You know?
Yeah, I know. I understand the value in that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's the thing, because you know I don't think this is gonna be like the greatest project ever. I think it's gotta be a good project, but I'm sure not everybody will like it. But you know, if I do an anthology, maybe some people who didn't like that one will like the other one, because it's a completely separate story. You don't have to read up on season 1 completely. You can just start anew, and maybe it'll interest you.
No, I definitely understand. And so far, I think that you're doing great. Obviously, making the greatest project ever would be a hard ask, but you've definitely filled the niche that needed to be filled, and you've done it well. Outside of the parts of Dracula that were written by Spider and not She Who Shall Not Be Named, it wouldn't exactly be hard to do something that hasn't really been done in terms of horror which in and of itself hasn't really been done all that often in FS Plus basically until now.
Oh, for sure. And with my next short, oh man, that's one thing I'm debating too. Creepshow, is that gonna return? I have no fucking clue.
Huh? A magician never reveals his secrets.
I know.
So perhaps
Am I-
you should just be careful. We got to
I
maintain
should.
the element of surprise.
We might have.
Either way, I'm
we
sure
might, we
it'll
might
be
have
something
John
to look
Cena
forward to.
instead of another Crypt Keeper. John Cena presents Invisible Man.
And John
To be
Cena's
honest,
doing
I
that
bet
Wipeout
he'd do that
episode.
because like he just kind of. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
I just want to say that, you know, it would be fitting because, you know, John Cena's he's like hosting that Wipeout episode. Cucky, could I please get the picture of the Wipeout John Cena, please, Cucky? Just
Oh yes,
just so we can support
wonderful.
Roose on his choice here, okay?
Mhm.
I just think
Yes.
it's a good idea.
We can have John Cena just standing in front of a green screen, just painting green.
Imagine trying to
I
do the
feel like
voice too.
At this point, John Cena is kind of like Snoop Dogg, where if you pay him to be in something, he will probably
He'll be
say
in it.
yes.
Yeah, he'll be in it. I mean, have you seen him?
He was in
How he
Blockers.
follows people?
I should watch Blockers because I just mentioned that.
Oh lord.
Okay.
I did hear
Yeah.
that was a pretty okay, honestly.
Yeah, I heard
my,
that's
my,
good
my,
content.
my dad kept memeing that commercial because like there's always the part where John Cena's like, I'm in, so he'd always like imitate the part.
All right, but yeah.
And was there anything else that you think anyone might be wondering about the show that you might want to comment on? Like I know one thing that you talked about before was the castings and how you were trying a different route than other FS projects. Would you want to elaborate on that in any way?
Yes, I didn't want to go for the obvious famous actors, and of course we do have like Nicolas Cage fan casting and whatnot. But I wanted to go for fan castings that really fit the look of the character, right? I don't want to be that guy who's doing a Death Note fan casting and fucking Vince Gilligan is like Yagami. I don't want, you know. I don't want to.
Vince
I don't want to be that
Gilligan
guy.
like Yagami, dude.
Or fucking oh jeez, I don't want to. I want to be someone. I want to pick somebody who's accurate and who fits the character, right? Like Damien Bichir, he would fit Xavier perfectly. And speaking of Xavier, he is a really interesting character for me. So I looked at Lethal Weapon a bit with Henry and Xavier's relationship, right? And I see so many of these cop buddy movies where it's always the rogue cop. He's the one front and center, and you have the other cop who's maybe more experienced, but he's always the wimp, right? Well, I wanted to go to the opposite with that, especially nowadays with the current circumstances. You know, having a rogue cop front and center is not exactly a good idea. I wanted to have somebody who's more steady, who's more calm, and more experienced. You know, it's this guy. He's like, "Oh shit, we're doing this," instead of, "Oh, we gotta catch him, we gotta gun him down, we gotta do this and that." No, we have a guy who's he has his family, and he's a generally good person. But in a regular person, he's just caught in this circumstances which are almost fantasy-like. You know.
Oh no, I understand that, and I do think that while the hothead young rogue cop who is always arguing with an older, more experienced cop is definitely a trope that I applaud you for attempting to avoid. I can definitely understand the way you're approaching it because I mean I'm not sure how much we'll touch on it later on, but especially in stories like this, you often see the whole thing about okay, like well, if you've got like if they find out there's a serial killer, handling it is always a debate in movies like this because you know you don't want to not inform the public, but you also don't want to cause mass panic and things like that.
Exactly.
You know,
And you have so many movies and shows where the rogue cop goes like, "Oh, I'm gonna track this guy down," and he does the most outlandish things that put people in danger. And I want to just do someone who's abiding by the system. It's Prisoners. I really like Prisoners.
oh
because
yes, that's awesome.
He had to abide by the system, and he still got the thing done. He abided by the system, and everything turned out well for him. And the person who didn't, well, you know, Hugh Jackman got fucked over because he took things into his own hands in a situation where that's a really bad idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to handle it because I mean, if you're doing horror, yes, to a certain extent, in order for people to have bad things happen to them, in order to see characters that you want to see get killed, people have to make stupid decisions, but there's a fine line between stupid and completely ruining the ability to suspend disbelief.
Yes, and suspending disbelief is a big thing. And of course, it's easy to suspend disbelief with here because I don't know if it's clear, but Simon is incredibly fucking stupid. He is. He's a fucking moron.
More than stupid.
This guy, he tries to reverse rob his fucking drug dealer. You see where that got him, and he's like, he sees the mask, and he's like, oh shit, well, only up from here. But yeah, so yeah, sorry.
And I did want to say that I think that was oh no, it's okay. I mean, after all, that's what we're here to talk about. Your ideas, your what you like to do. And I did want to say that I think it was interesting that the mask was sort of what helped him, or what sort of swept away any last bit of moral ambiguity might have been left to him and allowed him to just completely devolve into utter sociopathy. Because like that's something that is off. I find that's a concept I've always found really interesting and realistic because, I mean, it's although a lot of the studies that have insisted upon it are flawed and might not be totally correct, but it's often been an idea that if you are unidentifiable, if your identity is concealed, that you feel more confident in doing things you would never do if you were fully exposed.
I mean, yeah. Just look at the internet, dude. There's so many people who hide behind their avatars. Me included, I guess. But we say the most outlandish things that we would never say in real life because we're hidden behind avatars. And that goes same for masks, I guess. This person completely covers up any shame he has. He's like, okay, this is not me. This is the mask, right? This is this persona I've made. His persona. He's just like Doctor Strange. But yeah.
Well, technically, since it's a skull mask, he's more like Sans than anything else.
Oh yeah,
that very dated reference.
Yeah, he went Sans mode.
He went Sans mode on him.
He went Sans mode. And speaking of him donning the mask, there's another thing I want to do, and that is the fight with Jorge. I might be pronouncing his name wrong, and I'm incredibly sorry. But with that, there was I talked to Brad about it, and he said, I think that there should be more of a fight there. And I kind of disagreed. I think Simon would get his ass beat by Jorge. I think it kind of adds to the fact that he's a bit of a fucking loser and a coward. He has to take him by surprise, and he manages to get lucky. And that kind of adds to the surprise of Jorge's death because it happens all of a sudden. Of course, there are hints throughout, the pepper spray and whatnot, that there's things setting it up. But I just wanted it to be a bit of a little surprise, and still realistic. I don't like shaking off sensible logic for shock factor, Sorry.
No, I get it. So, and is there anything you want to ask him, Jerk? I'm not trying to hog the floor here, so.
No, it's okay. So, when you took in these inspirations, was there anything you want to make sure you didn't take like too much from? Like what was it you sort of
Fargo and Hotline Miami, and yeah, there is something I wanted to make sure I didn't copy off of because this is obviously incredibly far from Hotline Miami. And this is more like Fargo than that, but I wanted to make sure it's not just a complete ripoff, right? So instead of a traditional crime story of a normal guy who gets caught up doing the wrong thing, this is a fucking, he's a star, but he's feeling insecure not because he's a normal guy, but because he isn't what he used to be, and that sort of creates a little bit of a jumping off point where his insecurities lead to him making incredibly bad decisions repeatedly. And throughout this, there's also a lot of some of the jokes, like the rock joke, right? There's the rock joke. That's him feeling. We don't know if the cashier actually fucking said that. I'm gonna be upright. The cashier might not have said that. That's just him imagining that she said that, right? It's like, oh, I'm being replaced by the fucking rock. Like, he feels insecure about that. He feels like he's being replaced by a new generation of action stars that are gonna be buffer and meaner and tougher looking than he ever was. I don't know. It's just really interesting. Now, of course, we're still in the early stages. We're still episode 1 out of like fucking 9. See, episode 2.
I know.
So one of the most fun elements of doing a death in the series, and there's a lot of deaths, like, one of the most fun things is setting it up. Okay, and there's a certain scene where a knife is shown, or a knife is referenced early on in the scene, right? And it's like, okay, he's just showing that probably to establish the kitchen. No. That's so much fun, just setting up the low seeds for what is a really graphic death scene. It's so much fun. And it's so much fun intertwining these different character stories. Because we have 3 different storylines right here, right? And 4 as the series progresses. And it is so much fun taking what are seemingly separate incidents and slowly intertwining them together to create one big, plot. It's like we have the police investigation, we have Simon being an asshole, we have the drug cartel, and they all intersect, even though, it doesn't seem like they will. And that's what I think is the most appealing about episode 1 in particular, is you go in thinking, okay, how is this all going to tie together? And by the end, it's like, oh, okay, that's how this ties into this, and this is how this ties into that, and this is where the series is going to go. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that this kind of correlated nicely, or do you think it kind of didn't quite tie in fully?
I think you did you're doing a good job with it. Nothing's perfect, obviously, and I think the show will sort of grow into its own as it moves a little forward. And I definitely think that, considering I've seen the next few episode outlines, that everything flows a lot tighter and is much more appropriately paced. Obviously, the first episode has to be a little slower to set everything up, but I think the next ones are going to be a lot more fun, a lot more poppy, a lot more action heavy, and that's a great thing. Not that the first episode isn't good, obviously, but it'll be easier to just get into if you're just popping in as an FS user who's scrolling through the channels, if you know what I mean. I
agree. And I think I've always thought of movies and shows like roller coasters. You know what I mean? You have some of them are like those launch coasters you see, like King the Ka. You know what King the Ka is?
Yeah.
Taco Dragster? Yeah. Where they shoot you up, you go, well, it's like fast pace, all the way through, and then a bit of a slow ending, right? And then you have the normal coasters where you slowly go up the chain hill, and you get an idea of what this coaster got to be. You see the layout of the coaster, you see all the little twists and turns maybe coming towards you. And of course, there's a few hidden ones. And you think, okay, this is what I'm getting into, I'm excited, but we're still at a very slow part. It's building tension for all what comes later. And then the first 3 episodes, because I consider the first 3 episodes to be the chain hill of the ride. So we're going up this chain hill, and then after episode 3, we crash down. Like the fucking Griffin ride at Busch Gardens. We crash down, and that's where everything goes to absolute shit. But yeah, so that's how I think of it. You gotta have some time establishing things, and I think that's what I think. That's what I kind of did wrong with Constantine, is that some parts felt really go, some parts felt very chain hill when they shouldn't, Well,
that's all right. I mean, I can probably say that every single person who has ever made an FS project had to learn some things from their first one. I know I did, although I try not to talk about it much nowadays, but yeah, I mean, like, we all learn things, and Constantine wasn't perfect, but it wasn't the worst thing or anything. It's good that you learn and that you're trying to move forward and make every project better, because that's what we would all hope to do. And I think we're all looking forward to what the next episode holds.
And you know what? That's writing, man. That's how you get better. You just gotta keep doing it. You can't stop. because
Right.
it's all just a continual road to improvement.
Right.
Now
Now the hard thing is actually writing, because I don't know about you, but I get ideas all the time. It's just when I'm needing to find time to sit down and
exactly.
write for a very busy 22-year-old such as myself, it is hard to actually find that time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's hard to find time, and of course, the ideas always strike at the wrong times. I'm up at 3 a.m. thinking, okay, Simon is from the planet. Oh, fucking.
I mean, that's me all the time, but like every time that happens, no matter how hard, I'm like, okay, well, even if it's 3 a.m., I can just pull out my laptop and get to
Yeah.
it if I'm still awake enough, right? But then I try to get up and then I realize, I'm not awake enough for this.
Sometimes I'll just write out notes. Right, I'll write out some notes of ideas, and then when I'm actually awake enough, I'll look over them and decide, okay, this is good, or okay, what the fuck was I thinking? This is fucking terrible. um, and I think what is also a good thing is just sometimes it's a good idea to just break barriers of what the show is. Just go for something that's so insane, that's so fucking weird and crazy or out there, and see if it works. To see if it fits in. And
Yeah, no, I
sometimes
definitely agree
yeah,
with that.
yeah, because sometimes it can turn out terrible, but sometimes it can be great. Now with Constantine, that wouldn't have worked because you saw how that thing, it was disjointed. Now I'm not saying it's a bad one. It's like a 2.5 out of 5, maybe, for my opinion. Very style. I agree with Perry's view quite a bit, but I think sometimes it's necessary and sometimes it's a bad idea. Sometimes you should have a consistent layout to follow. Well, the series like Fast Times in L.A., this is supposed to be kind of a fucking plunge into insanity on all ends.
Right.
As the series
Not
continues. Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
And I'm not even doing this as like, because I know that at least for some of us it became somewhat of a meme, so I'm not even memeing when I say this. But I suppose with the kind of show setup that you've got here, it makes sense to have a sort of varied setup for each episode, even if the core formula is sort of the same. I could compare it to like what that. Oh gosh, I feel like it's gonna sound stupid even saying this if you don't know what I'm talking about. But a miniseries I could compare it to, even though this is a full show and not a miniseries, is NBC's The Slap, where every character has an individual episode. This
Yeah.
isn't entirely like that because every episode has so many characters that you've got to have this person's next story piece and this person's next story piece. But considering that your episodes are probably going to have every episode is going to have a different set of characters or a slightly different order, you can play with that and sort of switch up the mood and the feel and the flow of each episode without it feeling like you're watching a completely different show than the one you started out with.
I
And
agree.
that totally works.
Yeah, because Simon often, you watch episode 1, you think, okay, Simon's the protagonist. Well, Simon is completely absent from some episodes. Simon and his whole storyline. Sometimes we gotta focus on Diego. We gotta see what's going on with that dude and how miserable he is. We gotta see what's going on with Pablo. We gotta see what's going on with Vernon. We gotta see what's going on, with all these different characters. We can't have we don't have time to fit everybody in one episode. So I thought, while we don't entirely give a complete focus on this one character, we kind of nudge them to the forefront of that episode, right? Because Simon was the centerpiece of episode 1. He didn't take up all of it, but he was the centerpiece. We saw a lot of his story or his origin. And yeah, that's how I'm kind of doing things. They're not completely the focus, but they are at the very front.
Yeah, I mean, that's normal. I think it's easy for some of us to forget that, given that it's kind of shocking how much shorter a lot of TV shows, especially ones geared only for streaming, have gotten in the last few years, because it used to be you expected a TV show to be at least 30 episodes, but now sometimes they only order like 10, 18 episodes a season, and then you have to wait like 2 years for what might be an even shorter season, simply because for whatever reason studios are being more reluctant to order more episodes in case it isn't as popular the second time around, even though arguably if you fast tracked it and made sure that existing fan base wasn't being starved of content, you would lessen the possibility of people becoming disinterested and lessen the amount of shows you had to can because you just didn't think there was going to be enough interest moving forward. But whereas like even as far as like 5 years ago, that would have been considered like the norm. You'd expect things to change for dynamics to completely shift around halfway in as new story arcs begin. Even Jor can tell me that, like, because I mean, like, not to get into weeb mode here, but you know, like me and him, we watch a lot of tokusatsu, and you expect if you watch a lot of that by the end of it for it to almost feel like a completely different show, even if you got the same set of characters, because the tone often changes with new developments and stuff. Although some of that is just due to things that
I
are
like it when he
different over
kicks the
there.
guy and he explodes.
Yeah, and I love that. I love when something starts at something, you know, like, oh, this is, you know, I know what this is, but then just completely changes. And worse, Attack on Titan. I know it's not everybody's favorite show, but I loved how we started at this kind of horror show, and then by the end, it's a very war focused, very action heavy show, and I love that. I love when when you can change and mess around with the tone. And also, change is a pretty big thing when you're making it, like conceptualizing it. For example, Fast Times in LA was very different when I was conceptualizing it compared to how it is now. Some character names, of course, have been changed around. The tone has been changed around. It was going to be a bit more serious, actually, when I first made it. When I was first thinking of it.
I think that's normal. We all have to, you know, spitball and refine concepts that we have until they work. Not to make it about me, but I can tell you that, like, I first had the idea for my FS Plus show, Plasma Man, in like late 2018, but I did not have a solid version of that concept until like December 2019 and maybe even January 2020 with some of those last minute changes, simply because you think you have a good idea, and I don't even the original idea for that, which I'm not going to get into here, is basically completely unrecognizable compared to the final product. But like, it's normal, you know. Sometimes you think you just have to know what when you have the ideas that are like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Sometimes when you actually start explaining it to someone, or you start writing it down on paper, and then you look at it, you realize there's some pretty big gaps there that need to be filled, or maybe some things that just need to be changed entirely for everything to feel more consistent.
For sure, like at the start, when I was first thinking of this, I was thinking, okay, Simon's got to become a vigilante in episode 1. I was gonna name him the Avenger, you know, it's like a little fucking joke at the Avengers. But I thought, okay, well, that's a bit too quick. He wouldn't immediately, well, he snaps pretty quickly for sure, but he doesn't quite become a vigilante. He doesn't become a good one, you know. And also, what's funny is that originally, when I was doing the whole show cross thing, because, you know, on my presentation or slide for the show concept, it was BoJack Horseman meets Watchmen meets Fargo. And it's changed quite a bit since that. Although there's a bit of BoJack Horseman still in there with a whole fucking retired actor who has the ego, and he still is unhappy with his life, and he's trying to find something to fulfill that. But it really is awesome to see how a project changes and morphs to something completely different from what you once wanted it to be. And that's not just for the projects you work on, but for completely different things. It's amazing to see how many changes a project can go through depending on what a person's into at the time, you know? Of course, there's also balancing that with other projects like Constantine. The TV series, I know that I'm gonna only glaze over briefly. That has had a lot of changes. I mentioned vampires are a thing there. I fucking love Universal monsters, by the way. Frankenstein, vampires. I fucking love them. Mummy, you know.
Oh yeah, I like the mummy.
Oh yeah, I love the fucking Universal monsters. I wish we could see more of them, because vampires.
I think that we will now after the Invisible Man last year.
Oh, for
Totally
sure.
changed the game with that in my mind. Like, it
I
would
wish
be
that
a
was in
bit
the
of a
Dark
stretch for me
Universe.
to
That would
call
have
it
been
like.
funny. That would have been funny if that was in the Dark Universe.
I'm glad that did move forward, because good God.
You have the fucking Mummy, the Tom Cruise, and then on the opposite of the spectrum, it's like, okay, this is a bit of a change.
Remember the trailer? You remember the trailer where they didn't have any of the audio? So
I
it just
love how they
streamed.
didn't even. I love how that actually happened. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
man.
like, I know that a lot of people dislike Brendan Fraser's Mummy for a lot of the same reasons.
I
But like,
love
if
it.
you're gonna make an action adventure movie instead of a horror movie, make an action adventure movie. Don't make an Avengers wannabe movie that has a mummy in it occasionally.
And that's what I loved about Invisible Man. Oh man, Leigh Whannell, what a fucking filmmaker. Or Leigh Whannell, excuse me.
I sometimes forget that he was one of the random dudes in the chained up in the dirty bathroom in Saw.
And he was a really bad actor too at that. But he was also the writer for the first 3 Saw movies. And I think
Well, I guess that explains why those were so much better than 4, 5, and 6. Although I guess some people actually like 6.
I actually like 6. I don't like 3. And the reason why I don't like 3 is I think it's a little too nasty. I'm very weird. I like Saw, but I don't like very mean-spirited violence. Like Saw 7.
No, I understand that.
I think I know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean.
Tramps like the Rack felt very mean-spirited. You know, they felt incredibly. It's like, should this dude really be there? You know, does he really deserve to be there? And I don't like how it's having his whole life in somebody else's hands. Fucking so ass motherfucking Jeff, dude.
I need to I personally know that I need to see like some more foreign horror, since I feel like I haven't like dived into that enough.
I've been dipping into some foreign horror. I watched The Platform a couple months ago. Fantastic film. I Saw the Devil. There are some scenes in Fast Times in L.A. which directly take inspiration, maybe a little too much, but they directly take inspiration from I Saw the Devil. And now these are in episode 6, or I think Proteus knows exactly what I'm talking about. But
yes, I think I know what you're talking about. Very brutal example of horror. I think it's was that a Chinese film or
it was a South
Korean film? Oh, Korean, the South Korean. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I do. And I like how you're sort of. I like how the show goes through a lot of different types of horror, touching on things we might have seen like traditional 80s horror, but including types of horror that a lot of people might not be exposed to is also pretty fun. Like, big fan of more people watching foreign cinema.
Oh,
subtitles are not that hard.
Foreign cinema, I still gotta watch Parasite, but foreign cinema has so many classics that people look over because of different language. And it's not just South Korean film. South Korean, though, it is an amazing cinema. Japan, their horror films, top notch. Spain, Europe in general. It's just there's so many different ones. I think there was it was a Middle Eastern horror film. I haven't seen it yet. It was about a vampire. I don't remember the name. But there's so many cool, great films that go overlooked by the public. And that's not just horror; it's action. Train to Busan, well, it's still technically horror. I consider it action. What a great zombie film! Train to Busan's amazing. Have you guys seen that?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty great. But let me ask you this: were you disappointed by the spin-off thing, like a lot of people were, or did you actually find it okay?
You know what? I refuse to watch it.
I
refuse to watch it.
Spicy, because it's made by the same people and everything.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it. I've heard what it does, and I don't want to diminish my opinion of the first film.
Fair enough.
It's like watching The Ring and then watching The Ring 2.
Funny thing
What's funny is that The Ring 2 was directed by the director of the original Japanese Ringu.
I know.
Really?
The American film.
Actually,
and it still turned out that way. How does that happen?
Did you know the guy who made the Grudge remake directed the original Grudge? The Japanese Grudge?
Really?
I'm not kidding. He directed the American remake. Now, the Grudge remake is not that bad, but it still has its problems.
I like the original Ringu, but there's also actually before the original Ringu movie, there was a television special, and that one that aired is pretty not good, if you ask me. Not gonna go into why.
I like how they're having crossovers between the fucking girl from the Ring.
Right. They have Sayako fight Tamara.
Wait, they're actually doing? Are you telling me
they did that? They did that, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then they had them combine into like one being, and it was really weird.
It's like a fucking Resident Evil villain, dude.
Yeah, she was straight up just a Resident Evil villain.
It's like Resident Evil 6 all over again. Imagine it's like fucking Sayako. Oh, they did the Rings. The new one what was it called? It was like 2017. It was so
Yeah,
fucking
Rings.
terrible.
It was just Rings.
Wasn't there a
What,
scene
are
where
they
they
doing
were?
are they doing like
Go ahead.
are they doing like an alien thing, like Alien and Aliens, like Ring
I
and Rings?
guess,
Is that what they're
but
doing?
it's so stupid because here's the problem with sequels. I think personally, sequels have the idea that okay, we have to go bigger, we have to go bigger each time, right? And that's with a lot of horror films. That's a very bad decision to make. Now, of course, it worked with Aliens, right? That's a very, very, very small example. Aliens, Terminator, and they were both directed by the same person. You know, I don't think going bigger and bigger is always the good solution.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But
There's
I
a
think
fucking-
that you've kept that in mind with your show, obviously, because like it's just a handful of locations, which is a good idea because it helps you focus more on the people and what they're dealing with rather than what's irrelevant. And like it's better to just maintain that when we're talking about text form anyway, because it's so much harder to convey descriptive scenes without feeling like you're going into histrionic, like you're trying to write a book and not a movie script when
I
you're
agree.
doing it in text form.
I agree. And yeah, keeping it limited in locations. I've been to LA. I've seen around there. Personally, one thing I want to start doing more is having things take place in daylight, because that makes things even fucking more intense. Because usually in movies or shows, now I like Ozark, but they
Who doesn't like Ozark? Shout out to
Exactly.
Hydra Looney, the one who made Ozark mainstream in FS.
but
Jason Bateman supremacy.
they too often to show it's dark, they have very dim lighting. It's very blue, and
Yeah, I always saw the whole. It does get blue, but like really, the whole film has like the whole show kind of has like. I don't want to say it's like Matrix level green tints, but it really does have kind of a light green hue to everything.
and you know what? That's fine sometimes. I actually really hated that in Saw movies. The Saw movies had a sickly green. I hated it. I wanted more.
Okay, yeah, like it's a very early 2000s kind of filming style, but
I think-
it's not something you see very much anymore.
I think if you have more color, and it's a very tense scene or very scary scene, it makes it scarier or more intense because you can identify that with your own, It's like a fucking shootout happens in broad daylight. It's sunny. That is more intense than some hidden night, shootout or whatever. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
hard to
I
describe.
in some cases I definitely agree with that. I think that dark can be used effectively, but I think that too often you can tell when they actually intended to use darkness for a very scary atmosphere.
Yes.
But then at other times it's incredibly paper thin, and when you can tell that they're only doing it because they're trying to cut it down to like PG-13 and they're trying to mask some of the things that are happening so that there's not too much gore so they won't get an R rating.
There's one excuse I think is okay though. Snow. I fucking love snowy settings. That's mwah,
Okay,
it's
yes,
fucking great.
that is absolutely an excellent way to like. It's a shame that like the Snowman from like 2017 turned out how it did, because like those kinds of places are incredibly like
No.
at first it like everybody like, and I mean I guess I know that some of my Canadian friends don't like snow as much as I do because they get too much of it, and I don't get nearly enough of it down here in Georgia. But yeah, I agree. It can be very scary when you use it right.
Yeah, and one particular one that I do like that does use darkness is gothic horror. We need more of that, please. Crimson Peak, perfect. I loved it.
Well, we've always got Guillermo del Toro around
we
to
do, we
deliver
do,
that.
we do.
Aside from Mortal Engines, like I love you, Guillermo, but never again.
I do love gothic settings. Not just for horror, but for general.
Do you think you'll
Oh, yeah.
include
They're very
more of
nice.
that in the show? Since I realize we've probably talked about more about horror movies in the last 5 minutes than we have
I
about
am
the actual
so
show.
sorry.
No,
I
you're
don't-
fine. You're fine.
I
It's
don't
I can go off on tangents like that too.
No. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to include gothic horror elements for Constantine, the series. Yes. You will see a lot of Dracula elements in the series.
Ooh.
Yes.
Hype.
And there's also the first episode, very similar to Outlast 2. It is. I think Constantine is where I touch on so many different genres of horror in so many different ways. It's a ton of fun. We have some Texas Chainsaw, we have some fucking Dracula, we have so many different cool things. Castlevania. But when it comes to Fast Times in LA, no. I think the serial killer plotline, and I'm not gonna say much more than just the serial killer plotline, because that has a lot of spoilers if I say anything more. But that's the only element which is really, truly a horror thing in this show. And even that can be considered crime,
Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of it, I know what you mean. Like, a lot of it really, especially the stuff with, like, the cartel, the crime drama. Like it's mainly a crime drama that's not too dissimilar from things like Ozark and the darker elements of Breaking Bad.
It's like,
and I will say that, like, I'm not saying this because I want to, like, pat myself on the back, but, like, I enjoy Pablo as a character, especially the way you've written him, because he seems like a guy who, like, he's kind of like have you seen HBO's Barry?
I've seen HBO's Barry. Yeah.
Yes, excellent show. Like, kind of reminds me of the person that he kind of reminds me of the Hispanic member of the crime groups in the city that he wants to befriend, but he doesn't like but that he wants to befriend. Like, he reminds me of the leader of that group. I hate that I forget his name right now because he's so great, but he's a great guy, but really funny too. But he has a very polite and smiley exterior, but as soon as you piss him off, he is extremely ruthless.
And yeah, what's awesome is that, Pablo, he's not what he says he is. A lot of the characters in Fast Times in LA are not what they say they are. Because they all are putting up appearances. Diego, he acts like he's loyal to the family. Diego's a piece of shit. He's not loyal to the family.
Oh, yeah, Pablo, Diego's really awesome.
Diego's awesome.
And in many ways, Diego's kind of like the replacement for the hothead cop, because instead you've got a hothead cartel member who's probably going to lead the family to ruin.
Yes, and we see how well that goes.
Oh yeah, you see how well that goes.
Oh yeah, for
snitches
all
get
sides.
Stitches, as the old saying goes.
But I love that we bounce off of very comedic scenes, and then we go to the microwave, and then we go back to the comedic scenes, and it's so much fun. I think Proteus doesn't know about when I say that, the microwave. But yeah, I love writing that these tonal shifts, but they feel appropriate because these are different stories. It's not like we have Simon cracking a joke right after killing somebody. When Simon killed Jorge, he's like, oh shit. We don't have a sudden tone whiplash. Instead, we see these different characters, and who all have their own different look on life, or their own tone.
And I appreciate that you at least made that a sense realistic, because, like, a lot of movies like this, even if we're talking about people who, even if they're like trying to show like the origins of like horrible killers, if they're meant to be like semi biopics, oftentimes they will just show someone murder someone for the first time, but then they just barely react to it, and they're just like, oh well, what's next? I think it's much more realistic that if you, like, even if you're a complete sociopath, it's much more realistic that, like, if you accidentally killed someone, you would be like, what the heck did I just do?
Yeah, and we see with Simon, he actually has to go back to his house and calm down and have the adrenaline rush off him. Because that's partially why I believe he's doing it, because the adrenaline, the high. It's just like he was when he was in Rampage.
Does that have any connection to the Rock action film with the giant gorilla, or the video game series in anywhere, or was that just a total coincidence?
What about Ballers?
Well, you know what?
Ballers?
I think when he was auditioning for the role of Jumanji, Next Level or whatever, he might have met The Rock there and took over his film.
More.
Yeah, Simon might have time traveled into the 2010s and took over a few of Rock's films. But yes, that was intentional. That was not a coincidence. I actively looked up for Rampage, and
awesome.
Yeah, I figured that would be funny.
Is there anything you want to say, or do you think we've pretty much talked about everything we can possibly talk about regarding this today?
I think that's mostly what we gotta say. But if you notice, the episode titles are all lyrics from songs.
Oh well, I did not notice that, but I will
Alright,
keep
so
an eye out.
look at the episode list. Welcome to your life, the most of freedom. So glad we've all made it.
Now
Yeah,
I
but
see it. Thank you
I'm waiting for the rap lyrics.
And then there's from I forgot what song it's called, but we're going out in style. Oh God, it's you as the atom bomb locks in. That's from another song. And then later on we have She's a Killer Queen, which is of course Killer Queen.
We should be careful though, Jark, because if he starts naming them after rap lyrics, Noah will start asking him to start naming them after the lyrics to Shell Shocked.
Yeah, you know what? I might just do it.
Shout out to Noah. Well, if he's open to it, I guess that's your open invitation, Noah. Well, yeah. I think that's probably gonna be it from us today. I think good talk, Mr. RooseLou. Thank you for coming here.
We forgot one
So
thing.
glad to have you on.
Wait,
I
what
have
did we
no
forget?
idea how. I don't know how you got all these actors, but you did it, man.
Jordan, we forgot one thing. Shout out to Mac. Please don't fucking kill me.
Oh yes, we totally forgot that. Thank you for allowing us to live, and go watch Doctor Strange if you want to see the definition. Like he said the last episode, it's the anti-FS movie in a lot of ways. If you know what anti-humor is, you will love the movie.
Yeah,
but it's also really funny.
It's like Mac is like the chainmail we used to see, like the Bloody Mary chainmail. You know, share this to 10 other people so Mac doesn't cut your throat.
Oh God, remember the chain email stuff. And obviously,
dude,
of course,
I fell for that so much. It's good.
I never really had email in those days, so I just didn't. I mean, I was like, what, 10 when that stuff was normal, so like I didn't care about anything but what was on TV.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, it's been awesome talking to you. I guess it's the end of the episode.
All right, well, that's been it from us, and yep, see you next time.
See you guys later.